Can everybody hear me? Yeah. Okay, great. I'm going to challenge the clergy. I'm going to ask you guys to be brief in your answers so that we can get through many of these questions. I know. And you all talk so nice.
That was one of the prerequisites.
That's why I didn't give her names. Oh, my question's in here. I didn't write it. Okay.
I'll answer that.
Yeah, it's easy. No. All right. What's the difference between the Catholic Bible and most Christian Bibles? The non-Catholic Christians, because Catholics are Christians too.
We are.
It's new. All right. You want to go first?
Outside of translations, because there are many translations, the Catholic Bible has more books in it, especially in the Old Testament, than the original Bible translated by Martin Luther when he began the Reformation. And part of that goes back to the original language that was spoken by many of the early Christian churches. For some Roman Catholics, we believe that everybody was speaking Latin at one point. That's not true. The official language of the Roman Empire, especially in the East, was Greek. And so there is a collection of books of the Old Testament known from Alexandria, Egypt, which was a Greek city, okay? And it was written in Greek. The leadership of Judaism would not accept that as their holy scriptures after the destruction of the Temple of Jerusalem. And I think it's important to realize that that destruction in 70 AD was a major, major turning point in the development of Judaism today. Because their priesthood disappeared, the sacrifices disappeared, and Judaism went through a major, major So we have more books because we have the Greek, and when Martin Luther was breaking with the church because of abuse, so we know that there were abuses, he went to the Hebrew scriptures, and that was the shorter Bible. And so that's basically it.
Any non-Catholics want to weigh in on that? Sure. Okay, Nate.
I just thought I'd mention that our tradition says that we call them the apocryphal books because we're not sure about the same thing, we're not sure about the origin of that. But we are told that they are useful for teaching and instruction, which is not part of the canon inscription. So they are. I did take classes in them at my Reformed Church College, Michigan, Hope College, and they're useful for teaching and instruction, but it's not part of the canon of Scripture. So I want to add.
Thank you for that clarification. I didn't know that. And yes, I was sure. Anybody else?
He follows it. Nobody pays attention to it.
The other thing that we would point out about the apocryphal and other than the canon stuff is that it covers what we call the intertestamental period. It is somewhere between the last prophets from about the 4th century BCE up until the time of the Gospels in the birth of Jesus. So it's not quite in the Jewish canon, and so Martin Luther didn't add it in, but it covers more just history and practices of the people there. And so yeah, as David said, it's useful for teaching, but it's not to us part of the story of God's self-revelation.
Thank you. All right, the next question is, are women now allowed to be priests in the Catholic Church?
What can they do?
What can we do? The second in command right now, next to the bishop, is the office is called Chancellor, and it's a woman, Terry Ginther, and she's doing a fabulous job. Women can do a lot in the church. We can't be ordained yet, but there is a mission, put forth by Pope Francis to look into the reinstatement of the women's diaconate. It doesn't seem to be going in our favor, but the Holy Spirit will get things done. But women really can do an awful lot in the church. We have extensive teaching roles and ministerial roles. And I have to say, belonging to this clergy association, I'm not treated as an inferior in any way. Everybody is super inclusive with me and treats me as an equal all the time. So it's lovely. And honestly, working with Monsignor, and I've been very, very fortunate to work with a lot of Catholic clergy who don't look at the gender, and they just look at the qualifications. And so I don't feel in any way like I'm being held back. I tease Monsignor about it because it's easy, but it's not.
And Jen has been a real gift to our parish and to the diocesan church in Trenton. But I think it's also important to realize that as the Catholic Church moves forward and realizes that we do have a shortage of ordained clergy, we are now looking at various models of church leadership. And canon law now allows for what is referred to as a parish life director. And we already have in this country and throughout the world what we call parish life directors. They can be married men or women. They can be deacons, or they can be religious sisters or religious brothers who operate the day-to-day working of the church, but they collaborate with an ordained minister, a priest, for the sacramental life of the church. And those parish life directors, you don't see too many of them in the Northeast, because at the moment we have a large number of priests, and half of them are on walkers and but we do have a large number of priests, and so we, but in the Midwest, and in the South, and in a lot of countries around the world, they're very important. In Africa, they are called catechists, and the catechist is very important to the life of the Catholic Church. And they can be both men and women.
Thank you. All right, do we all, everybody on the panel here, believe that Jesus Christ is the Son of our Heavenly Father, Yahweh, and that He will return soon? So the question is, does everybody on the panel believe that Jesus is the Son of God, and also that He will return in the second coming? Who wants to start?
Let's let Omar go first.
Okay, so but before that, I want to thank you, Father, for mentioning something. One of the misconceptions that we have in Islam is not the religion itself. So the religion, whatever comes from God, is the best. But whatever comes from us, sometimes so is not good. So the cultural things that we have in our cultures, sometimes we are trying to impose them as a religion. For example, the shaking of hands. That's not religious. That's a cultural thing. So you're going to see that 100% of the European Muslims do shake their hands. And it does not have to do nothing with the Islam. So that's with the culture. And it's a lot of things. Yeah. So because the Islam was revealed in Saudi Arabia does not mean that I have to live like that, or I have to do whatever they do, or I have to think what they so however they think. God says that you are coming from one father and one mother. The best among you is the one who respects the most God. So who is respecting God the most? He is the best one. No matter he's from Albania or from Europe or from Middle East or from whatever he is. When it comes for Jesus, or how we call Isa, we do believe that, and we know from our holy book that in the Quran there are 25 prophets they are mentioned. But during the history, we have more than that. Why? Because God in our holy book says, or Muhammad, tell the people that there are some of them that we mentioned their names, and there are a lot of them that we did not mention their names. But God also says, we did send a prophet to every nation that he was talking in their language so they can understand him. When it comes to Jesus, we believe that he is not Son of God, he is Son of Mary, and he does not have a father. But when God sent the angel, and the angel went to Mary, and he said, you have a good news from God, he will give you a son, which will be a sign for the whole humanity. And the Mary said, oh angel, how can I have son when I was never married? And you know that I am not the bad one. And the angel said, God said, when he wants to do something, he just says be, and he's going to be. We believe that. And we do believe also in the Quran it's mentioned when it talks for Jesus that says that and he will come back. But the scholars of the Quran, they are not 100% sure, so who will come back? Jesus or his teachings? So because it says, and he will come back. He who? He. So it might be himself or it might be the teachings. So we don't know. But we know for sure that he wasn't Son of God, according to Islam.
Thank you.
Simple answer is yes.
Yes. God is coming back.
Define soon.
Oh.
In God's time. And whether that's soon on our scale or not, I have no blessed idea.
It's got to be God's time because it's already been like 2,000 years. Anybody else want to add?
It's too
Are you all good? I know. I'm ready now. Okay. Over this one's for you again.
What?
You're a mystery to us.
Where are we getting
Soon. Yes. Like with the second comment. Yeah. What do Muslims believe happens to people who renounce Islam and convert to another religion?
I mean, as I said, me as an Albanian, I cannot go home and tell my mom when I tell I'm not Albanian. So, as a nation, we cannot make a choice. We are whatever God decides. But as somebody who is Muslim, and after that he will change his religion, I'm not God to make a judgment. So I will let him deal with his God, and he will be responsible.
Thank you. Okay, this is for everybody. What does ministry refer to? What is ministry? Get the mic, Will. Get off your butt.
I just said getting off your butt.
Okay. Anyone
When we talk about ministry, we endeavor to make it clear that every person, anointing before I said it wasn't just for the clergy, but every man and woman who follows the belief is to minister, to serve. And we serve within the church structure, but we serve more outside of the church structure. And we teach that our lives represent ourselves as a key aspect of ministry. And we teach that you don't want to be transparent, you want to be transparent. You want people to see God through you. And as you do that, you're ministering when there's a need, and you meet that need, you're ministering. Ministry just isn't serving, and everyone is to be a servant. One of the problems we have within our church culture is that we glorify folks we like, and we don't praise and establish the necessity for every job that's in the church that's ministry. Very quickly. Within the Roman Catholic Church, there's been a rediscovering, very much, Bishop, as you have said, of what ministry is. Because for the longest time, ministry was considered the ordained ministry. And it was seen as the prerogative of, before the council, bishops and priests. And everything else was, you did your works. But since the council and since a lot of development after the council, I'm talking about Vatican Council II in the early 60s, called for by St. John XXIII, that whole concept of ministry is much wider. And that's why lay people can be involved in ministry, and really the ministry of the laity is rooted in their baptism. And we're all called to the priesthood of believers.
Thank you. Anybody want to add? Next one. I'm going to kind of lump a couple together. It seems a little bit more of a comment that religious people are turning off the masses by keeping intolerance in the news. And that's a very valid comment. Followed by a question that it was recently Pride Week, and we have many gay friends. It broke my heart to have them bash religion. I know as a Roman Catholic, the church's stand as it is much more progressive. What is the stand for each denomination or faith tradition? And don't gay people deserve the love of God and a right to have a house of worship? So who would like to tackle that one?
I can do that one.
All right. Did you get off your butt?
Sort of like get your butt moving. So the Methodist Church is actually debating this right now, and actually took a more hardline stance than the traditionalist stance this past year, actually will go into effect January 1st. Not only saying that Methodist clergy are not to perform same-sex marriages, or that we cannot have clergy in same-sex relationships, but also saying now that those who do those things will be punished with different types of penalties. So that's our official stance, but with one of the misconceptions might be that, one church believes something, I know it to be Methodist, that's what all Methodists believe. And I know we've brought those themes up that, churches can be different. So within United Methodism, we have churches that have taken an open and affirming stance. We have the Reconciling Ministries Network, which works with churches to minister to LGBTQ persons, to publicly take a stance that they're open and affirming, that they will perform same-sex marriages, that they'll embrace clergy in same-sex relationships. We also have churches that are part of different movements, a more traditional movement that embrace the stance of the denomination and want others to hold to that. And then you have a lot of churches, which I would say my own congregation is what we call big tent, where you have people who have stances on either side. We come together, we worship together, but we have open debates and discussions about these topics and know that we're not of one mind. While there was movement in the church, that we would move to a place where local congregations and clergy could decide where they stand on this position and do ministry as they can in those ways. The majority of legislative people, delegates in our denomination believe that we need to stick to one stance and force others to follow along with that. So there's a lot of hurt right now in the church, and we gather again next year to figure it all out again. So it's a messy time for United Methodism, but it's also kind of an interesting time too, as we try to see how we can move forward. Will that be a split? Will that, what will that look like? We don't know yet, but we're talking about it more and we're trying to work through it more. So maybe good to come from that.
Okay, in the Presbyterian Church, first let me define my terms. We are a Presbyterian Church USA. There are a couple of other Presbyterian denominations that have the name Presbyterian, and they have formed over various schisms in the history of the church. Going back to the 70s with the ordination of women, we have a splinter Presbyterian group who said, oh no, we can't ordain women. Well, the PCUSA has been ordaining women for 45 years, 50 years, something like that. We will, in the Presbyterian Church, ordain openly gay and lesbian elders and deacons. We have been doing that since 2009. We will ordain openly gay, openly LGBTQ clergy. We have been doing that since 2011. And because of those changes, we have lost congregations to some of those other Presbyterian denominations. Most recently, we have taken a position that allows for same-sex marriage. The way that works in the Presbyterian Church, though, is each individual congregation gets to decide if the building is used for a same-sex wedding. In most senses, I am not in charge of the Presbyterian Church. It is the elders who make the decisions. So they get to decide who can hold services of worship and we consider a wedding a service of worship. So it is not my call on whether or not that sanctuary gets used for that service. However, if a friend of mine asks me, if a gay friend of mine asks me to officiate her wedding, I can absolutely do that, and my session cannot sanction or discipline me for doing that. They cannot stop me from officiating that service. They can just say, you may or may not do this at 118 West Main Street, Freeport, Winchester. So those are our positions, and we have been through a lot of turmoil in the last 10, 12 years over this, but we have come out on the other side. No pun intended. So that is our position on all of that. We affirm that everybody is loved by God, everybody is one of God's beloved children, and whatever your orientation is, that does not make you any less beloved in God's eyes, and I will minister to anyone. No questions asked, no exceptions, and if you want to be part of the church and serve, come on in.
So just keep that in mind. Come on, Fred. I want to hear from you.
Well, when I used to talk about hospital, obviously there's a variety. I can only speak. Our organization is 100 years old. There's like 500 congregations in 48 states. That's why there's a number in the northern mission field. We take a stand that where each and every one is cared about. We do not endorse homosexuality within the priesthood. We don't endorse same-sex marriages. We do extend our love and the love of God to each and every one. And the basis is our understanding, our interpretation of Scripture, and our personal concern. Yes, personal concern is the impact. I know there's a television show, Modern Family, but we take a more traditional perspective of a male father and a female mother, which is essential in the upbringing of children. So we show up to everyone. We don't ask anyone to leave. We don't not teach and not share love, but we do not endorse homosexuality as a valid lifestyle that God would want someone to have. And we don't endorse same-sex marriages.
Go ahead.
Okay. As Roman Catholics, I think we're probably up there as far as hate group is seen when it comes to a lot of the cultural wars. And we are. There is, about maybe 5-6 years ago, and I always get this, but the Center of Poverty, or the Poverty Center.
Southern Poverty Law Center.
Okay. Provided a film on hate groups, and we were in the film. So they were criticized for it, they removed us from the film, but we are seen as a hate group when it comes to abortion, when it comes to homosexual rights, and other areas in that area. Historically, we were part of the great religious establishment that said homosexual people are going out. So historically, that was part of our teaching. Since even before the council, but definitely with the council, that teaching has been more open to embracing individuals as individuals, not just their sexuality, but who they are as sons and daughters of God. All are welcome at the church. We do not have same-sex marriage within the Catholic Church, but then again, remember, we're the Catholic Church. There's a lot of people who can't get married in our church. And that's not glib. I'm sorry, that's not glib. Okay? Divorced and remarried people can't get married in the church. Same-sex couples can't get married in the church, and other relationships are not always recognized. Okay? That has been our tradition for the last 2,000 years. And so we have had documents that have challenged what was very prevalent in some families when a child came out to his or her parents that they were gay and they would be disowned or thrown out. One of the early documents from the 80s talked about these are our children, and we are to love them and to respect them. We are not to discriminate against them, but then there's always those areas of gray that we're still working through. Where we go from here, I don't know, but I know the first statement is why are religious people so what is it again? Intolerant. Just like there are unreligious people that are intolerant. You know, that's their personality. And religion or political belief doesn't change the personality. So you can have very tolerant secular people as well as very intolerant secular people. You can have tolerant religious people and you can have very intolerant religious people.
So I feel a little obligated to talk about this since I spent the last week arguing about it at our annual denominational meeting in Holland, Michigan. So let me just try to Reformed Church in America. There's other Reformed traditions in the U.S. Let me start out by saying that our local body, the Classis of New Brunswick, which is a clustering of about 30 churches, has an open and affirming statement. And I'm on the board for Group for All, which is a group that advocates for full, advocates, supports, and educates for the full inclusion of gay and lesbian people in the church. But our church has been arguing about this on paper for at least 40 years. In 1978, we issued a paper. Anita Bryan was advocating against civil rights for gay and lesbian people. Came out with a paper that still said, actually did a very thorough reading of scriptures, set out 2 alternative views, that we sided on the more condemning side, but said we need to advocate for the rights of gays and lesbians. So they have a right to housing, they have a right to jobs, they have a right to employment, they have a right to all the same civil rights as anybody else. Now that was probably the most thorough study that was done. There have been times, there have been more policy statements that each annual meeting has stated, but they've never made it into the Constitution of the Reformed Church in America, so it has never changed our practice. So right now, our Constitution, the language of the Constitution does not define marriage as between man and woman. When our liturgy uses that language, it's not part of the Constitution itself. It's an effort to make it a piece of the Book of Church Order, our Constitution. It didn't pass 2/3. That's the standard. 2/3 of churches, classes, and their denominations to approve that. So right now we're in a big fight about it. Conservatives are saying they can't live with us. The more progressive, radicals are saying we can't live with them. And so last year we said we're going to come up and do a study group and come up with 3 alternatives. Stay together and try to find a way to live together as one. I get preaching now, but Christ's unfair about that we should all be one. This room says we don't live that out too well, but we work at it, and we're one in Christ. Actually, you gave a good talk about Jesus also there, so stay together, somehow divide into 3 separate groups, the right, the left, and the middle, and still have one being an umbrella corporation, and the other one is graceful disengagement. So right now, you know more about this than my congregation does, because they don't really care about the higher ups. The church is local, and so they're worried about what's going on in our sanctuary with our kids, what's happening here. So we're in the midst of that right now. So there's about 40 congregations who are open and affirming. That's about 5% of our congregations in the denomination. We're the only Classis local group that has an open and affirming statement. There's another one that's considering it at this point, but we're fighting about it the same way the culture does. And as I was saying with Bishop Rubin, we fight inside the church and outside the church for people wherever we show up. So anyway, that's what's going on in my denomination.
I do want to add one more thing, and that is with the increased revelation of the sexual scandals within the church, and also the revelation of increased cover-ups and neglect of our bishops. There are groups in our church that are blaming what they call the homosexual agenda within the clergy, whether we have too many gay priests. Like many other groups within the church who feel, let the priests get married and this will clear up. And I doubt if anybody with married clergy would agree with that, because there's a problem in all religions and all institutions and with married men. And that it's a gay issue are limited to the understanding of what abuse really is. Abuse is power and arrogance and an exploitation of the weak. And that is done by individuals, no matter what their sexuality is, no matter what their status is. And the fault of the institutional church was to not recognize it and be more afraid of the negative publicity than the issue of justice for the victims and their families. And now we are paying that price and of really keeping our eyes locked. So in a sense, there's a lot of negative press about gay clergy and gay and homosexuals in the church, because there are those who would like to say this is all their fault. And it's not. It's not. especially when you meet up with women who have been sexually abused by priests and by church workers, and of course, when you meet up with both men and women who as children were abused by a member of the church.
Anybody who needs to go, please do, but anybody who wants to stick around, we're going to finish once to come. Okay?
Okay, so Islamically, Islam so recognizes the marriage between man and woman. But when you talk about the sort of people who believe in Islam, you are talking about 1.5 billion people. So we have them around us. Did God force them to be as they are? No. So it's, but does God know what they are? Yes, He certainly knows. So I'm not the one who will fight with them. Prophet Muhammad, he said once that there is 2 times where I find myself and I'm so happy. First one is when I'm with my God, and second one is when I'm with my wife. I try to do the same. I'm happy with my God, and I do my best to be happy with my wife. As Father Sam said, what's going to happen in the future? I see my family like, oh my wife. So, as Father Sam said, where it's going to go this, I don't know. We are not responsible for everybody. They are responsible for themselves. If their choice is to do so, we're going to have nothing much except to respect them.
Anybody else want to weigh in?
No.
You could have called out John.
I mean, I don't want to waste too much more time on this because we have other questions, but Baptists believe in a continual revelation. So there's always more light being poured from God into our lives, and that causes some people to become very conservative and believe that we need to go back to the old ways, and that causes some people to believe that we need to understand how we are in relationship to other people. So there are very conservative Baptists, there are very progressive Baptists. We do have a wing of our church, the Association of Welcoming and Affirming Baptists, and they are committed to full acceptance of all of God's people. And I believe that their willingness to try and understand God in the context that they are given is a valid and worthy thing. And that's about as much consensus as you can get from any kind of Baptists.
All right, it's currently 9:07. The journey is yelling. Usually is anyway.
Does this mean we get a lightning round?
Yes, I was actually going to say lightning round. Thank you, John.
Yes.
We've done that in the past. These are just real quick answers. But again, anybody who needs to go, please don't feel funny about getting up and going. All right, lightning round. Yes. Catholics can't go to any other church service. Well, it doesn't count for our Sunday obligation. And then the other statement here is no one can take communion who is non-Catholic in the Catholic Church. Does anybody want to address that? Lightning.
So quick answers. One of my very best friends from back in Pittsburgh is a devout Catholic, and I had tickets to a Penguins game on a Sunday afternoon, and I couldn't miss church because I was singing in the choir. And Tim came with me, and he said, yeah, as far as I'm concerned, I have no obligation this week. So I think a lot of Catholics make up their own mind on that. And as for receiving communion in a Catholic church, when I was in seminary, I got to go to the Holy Land, and we were in Palestine in an Arabic Catholic church in Beit Samor. And our seminary professor asked me, parish priest, whose name I won't mention in case it might get recorded. Are you comfortable serving the Lord's Supper to Bush Protestants? And he said, no, why would I deny God's grace to you? I do not care what the Rome says. And so, we got served, yeah.
He was a no kind. They were just.
No, he wasn't.
It was laughing.
Yeah, he was laughing.
Okay, we have them too. Anyway, I think it's important to realize for us, communion is a sign of our unity. And the sad reality is we are not united. Granted, there's a lot better relationship among Christian denominations, but we're still not that unity that Jesus prayed for. For us, receiving communion is the unity that is already present. We do not work towards unity by sharing communion with others. And so that's why we have what is called close communion. I'm sure there are Catholics. In fact, I have to confess publicly, when I was in college, before I was enlightened, I actually went to the ordination of a woman deacon in the Pittsburgh diocese, and I did receive communion. And I saw a lot of similarities. But when I do go and worship with my Christian brothers and sisters of other denominations, or as we call them, ecclesial communities, I respect what they believe, and I hold on to what I believe.
Anybody else want to weigh in?
Sure. Real quick, many Protestant churches practice what's called open table, which means that anyone who has made a sufficient profession of faith is welcome to join the feast. And depending on where you are on that spectrum, that may be a formal profession of faith, or it may be an inner conversion that you've had. And I'm not necessarily in the place to parse everyone's confession of faith while they're attempting to receive communion. We generally, in the Baptist Church, we try and have kids be approximately teenage age so they can make an adult decision about whether they want to participate. But that said, we do this in remembrance, as it says in the Gospels, that we are to take this meal in remembrance. And so if you are capable of remembering, you are welcome at the table.
Lightning round. Come on, let's go.
We're slowly.
About the Catholic.
All right. What do you find the most difficult aspect of your faith tradition to explain to someone outside of your religion? That's kind of a long.
I've got a short answer.
All right, make it super short.
The hardest part to explain to someone who's not part of the Presbyterian tradition is that the pastor is not in charge.
Good. Anybody else? Hardest thing to explain?
Sure.
Unless when something goes wrong.
As a Baptist, it's all about your choices, but you all have to come together and make the choices together.
Which Baptists are notoriously bad at?
And terribly. We are bad at making it.
It's Trinity Sunday this Sunday, the Trinity.
Oh, the Trinity. That's a tricky.
Kittens, use pictures of kittens.
Yes, the Trinity is tough. Anybody else?
We trace our theology to John Calvin. There's a lot of misunderstandings about John Calvin and Calvinism, so trying to clarify that is tricky.
Calvin is tricky. Tricky to explain. Sorry, not
Yes.
tricky.
No.
By yourself.
He had his own tricks.
Right? Another thing?
The indwelling of the Holy Spirit, when that you receive it, is something key that possibly might not be general.
Okay, so the indwelling of the Holy Spirit. Awesome. Thank you. Omar, anything? One tough thing to explain to people? I know.
I stayed for the whole month. I was fasting.
Oh, you're so
Actually, between the Albanians, we don't have any issues with Catholics and Orthodox. I miss my neighbor, which he was Catholic, and he was sleeping in my house. We were sleeping in his house. The Orthodox was, so they were coming to our house for our holidays, we're going to their house for their holidays, and we never ask them, why do you believe in something that you believe, or they did not ask me, so who is your God? But we were like one. But when it comes with the others, so I mean within the Islamic faith, we have the hardest point that we have is to teach them that, look, you keep yours for yourself, and I will keep mine for myself. So we cannot believe in the same God, but whatever you have in your family, you keep it for you, I will keep mine for me. That's the hardest thing that we have. We are doing some good stuff.
For me as a Roman Catholic priest, it is recognizing some of the pain that the church, the institutional church, has inflicted on our people. Whether it was being rude in a meeting, whether it was some of our practices. I think I was sharing with somebody. When I was growing up, we could not go to another church. We were told it was a mortal sin to go to another church, unless you went to Catholic Mass. And then you could only sit there and not participate. That was a big thing. And I think that was more cultural of the church's experience here in this country. Because, and I have to admit, we were not welcome when we first came over. That's why we sent so many people over, so we could become the majority. So that was number one. But to be able to recognize the pain in our people who have experienced pain, and then explain where we have changed and where we are going. But recognizing that not all clergy read the memo. And that's one of the painful elements. I don't know about the other congregations, but not everybody reads the memo. So I'm still hearing about people who, priests and parishes that are doing things that I know have been changed over the last 40, 50 years.
All right, next question. Doesn't St. Paul write about predestination in Ephesians chapter 2?
So let's hear from the Calvinists. David?
We use two terms. We talk about predestination and we talk about foreknowledge. When we talk about predestination, God has predestined something to happen. But we also talk about foreknowledge that tomorrow is history to the Lord. So he knows what's going to happen. But he distinguishes that from predestination. So there's times that certain things, according to our belief, have been predestined, and other things, foreknowledge. For example, Pharaoh, in having the battle with Moses and throwing the children, we would say that was God's foreknowledge of the type of person he was, and he used him for his divine will and purpose, as opposed to predestinating him to do what he did. So again, predestination and foreknowledge are two words that we use and we separate the two.
That's a great distinction, thank you. Calvinist, do you want to weigh in?
Lightning round, that was good.
Yeah. We all agree with what Brent said. All right, we're good. Okay. Last one, being part of this ecumenical, really interfaith group, has it helped you to share your faith traditions better with your own communities as well as with each other?
Yes.
I'm not sure it's really helped. I think what it has helped do is get over cultural fears and anxieties about talking to people of other faiths. That the same taboos that Father Monsignor Sam grew up with. I grew up with, you're not supposed to go to Catholic church, you're not supposed to do this. Alan talks about how our we spent our childhood learning about why our faith was better than everybody else's faith. And it's like, somewhere along the way, we woke up and realized it's not true. It's just different ways of expressing our faith. And so I think it's just gave people permission to get along with, worship with, interact with people of other faiths, and to honor their traditions more. I think is what in itself our folks do.
Great, thank you. Alan.
Yes. But, so what? The question is, are you guys enjoying this? Are you having fun? Are you all of this community? I can sit down with Sam and Jen and Will and David and Fred and John, and actually I usually do sit down with Jen and John, and sometimes Sam and Will, on Mondays can talk about our scriptures for next Sunday. We already do this on our own. The question is, how do we work outside of our walls? And I counted 74 people here tonight, including clergy. I think that's a pretty good start. So the question is this good for me? The question is this good for all of us? And I think the answer tonight for everyone is yes.
Very fast, Monsignor.
As someone once said, I always get the last word. Okay. I'd like to quote Mother Teresa, Calcutta Teresa. When they asked her about other religions, especially working in a predominantly Hindu country with a very large Muslim minority, Christians very small minority. And she said, I respect all religions, but I love none. And by working together, I can say that not only do I respect, but I have an affection for all religions, but I still love one.
That's going to be the end of our program tonight. Thank you all for coming. We'll probably do this again, so please fill out your evaluations if you haven't already. Leave them on your table and we'll come get them. We take your comments seriously.